Hello, Kansas City. It's me again, Kim Randolph, back again with another episode of Speak Up, brought to you by Televida. Hey, guess what? We're doing part two of the Chuck Bird interview. You know, we didn't get through everything in our last episode, so I asked Chuck to come back, and we're going to kind of pick up where we left off. We're going to talk now more about the campaign and what's going on in the city and what he plans to bring to Kansas City and the council. Chuck, thank you for coming back. I appreciate you, and I'm really excited to hear more about what you're going to do in Kansas City.
Kim, it's good to be back with you for part two of what we started last week. So it's always exciting to be in your presence. So let's make it do what it's supposed to do.
Let's do what it do. So, okay, now we have this election coming up. Had a fabulous commercial. I saw it. I posted it on my page.
Thank you very much.
On my personal page, I have to say that. I want to say this though. There is so much to unpack in Kansas City. Driving down the streets, one of the big issues.
Yeah.
Potholes.
Oh yes.
And I'm even seeing potholes all over the city. This is not just a isolated area. I mean, there's areas across the city that I'm seeing potholes going, wow, I wasn't expecting that. So as the councilman at large, if you were to get that seat, is that something you would address almost immediately?
It would be. And I agree with you. You know, driving the streets of Kansas City is becoming a challenge.
Tell me about it.
Because, you know, I'm quite sure it's helping the automotive industry because of front end alignments and tires and rims and all the other stuff that goes along with it. Yeah. And so trying to get that compensated through your insurance company or the city is going to be a daunting task. But in regards to the pothole situation, just our maintenance of our streets and bridges and curbs and sidewalks, you know, I'm not sure what the process is right now because I'm not inside of City Hall.
Yeah.
But I will tell you this will be one of my top priorities because I believe the funding is there. I just think it's a matter of implementation and making it a priority. This is part of being a city council person, being sensitive to the constituents who are voting for you and saying, hey, if I'm out on the trail and saying, hey, potholes are going to be my number one, you know, initiative or one of them, and then I get seated and then nothing happens, I've failed the people.
Yes.
And so I'm one of those people because I drive the same streets as they drive. And so, I would take a look and see what we currently have in place and what's the process. And then I can then relay that to my citizens and say, hey, here's the process. And so be it social media or whatever way I need to communicate with them because I said on the campaign trail that this was something I was going to look into. I think it's just a matter of communicating with the people. If they know that you are aware of our situation, and you're doing something about it. So I think the big part is just communicating with the people. Don't keep them in the dark.
Right.
Let them know that, hey, I'm talking about this in council or on this date. And so if you guys want to weigh in, please come weigh in. I'm going to lead the march. You know.
Okay. And so it kind of reminds me too of something that you said, and I'm going to try to weave back into that. You mentioned, and what I really appreciated, looking at in the lens of the entire city. And you spoke about the issues on the north end, in North Kansas City, on the north side, the east side, the south side, and having to, you know, to bring all that together.
Right.
I had never heard anyone really talk about it like that. And so can you elaborate a little bit more on what that means and what that'll mean to you?
Well, it's interesting that we're having this conversation again this week. I went to Platte County EDC board meeting on Tuesday. And I believe that I was the only business person in the room. Everybody else was either a mayor or a city manager or assistant or tied into city government in some shape, form, or fashion. And so it was interesting to hear them talk about what's going on in the Northland. And I agree with some of the stuff that they said in regards to how the Northland functions and operates. They get things done. But where they lost me is when they say, you know, we need to get Kansas City on board with us. And it kind of threw me like, that's that dividing line I was talking about.
Right, right.
It's the Northland, and they have created, not saying it's their fault, but when you get left out of situations that is in the best interest for the entire city, but you tend to put all your energy in a certain place, and these people see it, then you leave them no choice but to operate in that fashion, because there's no communication between the North City Council and the South City Council. And I'm not saying that it's either one of them's fault.
Right.
But when you are a candidate at large, that means I have to go to the Northland.
Right.
I have to come to the South to find out what's going on.
Yeah.
But for me to sit in that meeting and hear them discuss, we have to communicate with Kansas City, or we got to get Kansas City on board. It's like we're talking about two different places.
Yeah.
And so that's the reason why I feel I'm the best candidate, because I've worked in the South, in the North, for 20 plus years. I know how they feel about certain things. I was raised in the South. And so I have the luxury
of having, both worlds.
Yeah, both worlds. And that's a unique situation. And, you know, that particular situation, Kim, I believe with some time, we can bridge that relationship to let them know that I can convince my colleagues in the South part of the city, we're going to be intentional about interacting with our city council people in the North, and I want them to reciprocate. And so that's the business side, because we got to do good business.
Well, you know, that brings me into, because you're talking about the collaboration between the councils. However, and I had this question brought to me after our last episode. Someone wrote me and said, hey, so if he were to go into council, one of the things that people talk about all the time behind the scenes is the disconnect between the county and the city, and how because of that disconnect, there's some overlap that people don't really understand, like the commissioners over Parks and Rec come out of the county. But the city owns the property, or something to that effect. I don't know all the ins and outs, but and that's in a lot of the city and county positions. What can we do, or what can the council and the commissioners do better to make the whole of the city? Because I know Jackson County is so much larger than this Kansas City property. So, you know, we do know that Jackson County has to look at the Northland, they look at Lee Summit, they look at Raytown, and anything that falls under the Jackson County umbrella. However, Kansas City is the largest metropolitan area.
Exactly.
And so,
well, it's interesting because I just had this conversation with County Exec Frank White in regards to taxes, and understanding that those are some of the questions we are being asked on our forums when we go and talk. So as a city council, this is the question. As a city council person, what would you do to lower taxes? You know, number one, that's the county.
Yes.
City council can't, you know, tell the county what to do
with the taxes.
What to do. And so understanding that makeup. And so as a city council person, I would find a different way to communicate that with the county, because I have my constituents saying, listen, I can't afford to keep my house because of the taxes. And so once again, you got to meet the people where they're at. And so if I'm getting that response, and as I stated on one of the forums, I said, we have to get the people some reprieve, some kind of way. And so if that means getting to the county and saying, listen, we know these taxes are, you know, owed. Let's figure out a way to spread this out and not have that financial hardship, because we don't want people moving out because of tax issues. And so you got to get creative and go to the table and say, hey, let's look at this option. Let's take that $2,500 or $3,000 that these people don't have, and let's see, can we spread this out? And I know we don't want to start digging a hole for them, but we have to get creative and figure out a way. It's not going to go away, but you got to meet it and go ahead and deal with it. So, you know, that's just one of the conversations that I had with him. But there again, not being in City Hall, not knowing the
No,
tools that we
right,
have,
right.
it puts us at a disadvantage. And so I'm a little hesitant about answering a lot of the questions
Yeah,
like I really want to, because I don't know what we have available to us in order to work.
right. And well, that makes a lot of sense too. But at the same token, there's so many things that people want to know. And I do think that part of the problem is we don't know who is responsible for what.
Right.
That's the first part. And then the second part is we have elected officials and appointed officials that have not had the opportunity, and I'm going to use opportunity to really get into or dig into what is available, what they have, and where their limits are. And then being able to work through that, because what I look at is when you go in the door, there's so many issues going on in Kansas City that you go in the door hitting the ground running. And if you're running all the time, you don't have time to really focus on what do we really have and how can we really work that out.
Well, you know, that's what I want to bring to City Hall. There again, I'm not a politician. I'm a businessman.
Yeah.
I am forced to deal with politics because of the nature of the business.
Yeah.
And so, but we got to do smart business. We got to look at it and figure out, okay, it's not just about you and I.
Yeah.
It's about the people that we represent, the people that vote for us. And we have a responsibility to communicate what we're talking about in order for them to embrace it. And so that means you got to get out in the community. You got to listen to what they're saying. And we got to stop this monologue, and we got to have some monologue and some dialogue.
Yeah.
Because if we're always coming to them, telling them what we're going to do.
Yeah.
We didn't flip, you know, that's not going to work.
Right, right. So it's time to go deep. And you know me, I like to push the needle, and I like to push it,
and
push the basket all the way over. And so one of the big issues that the East Side has faced and is facing now, it's all the great things that happen in Kansas City. The East Side usually gets left out.
Right.
And so one of the big issues that we're seeing now is we just finished with the Big 12. We have the Elite Eight about to happen right here in Kansas City. And next month is the NFL draft.
Exactly.
And I have more businesses from the East Side, Black-owned businesses, brown-owned businesses, saying, "Hey, we're being left out. We can't close down the street and have our own celebration." We get that, and I did understand, that with that much traffic going on, and first responders are going to be short. Okay, I get that. However, everything has always looks like it's going to be isolated into an area. And so one of the things that I have been told was that the city had no control, that everything surrounding the NFL draft was based on the NFL draft. And that in order for us to have it here, we had to let them choose the vendors. We had to let them decide where the events would be held. And it kind of put us at a disadvantage again. When are we going to stop? And this is my question. When are we going to stop excluding, saying that we want to be inclusive, we want to be one Kansas City, but we continue to exclude the underserved communities, which are ready to do the work if they're given the opportunity to get the work done? When are we gonna, and how do we become included?
Well, you got two questions.
I know,
and I'm gonna answer. I'm gonna answer the first one first. Let's deal with the NFL draft. Then I want to talk about the East Side. First of all, this is what I'm talking about when I say bringing good, smart business to City Hall. You can't come and have a party in my city and not have my input. Okay, that's bottom line. You want to have it here. Okay, you have your guidelines. We also have our guidelines because we are all-inclusive city. And so I understand you have your agenda, But this is when we come to the table as a collective body and say, okay, we see what you have before us. We see what you want. This doesn't work for our city. We got some tweaks and things we need to make sure happen because we don't want to deal with the residue once the NFL draft is gone.
Yeah.
Because that's typically what happens. We have to deal with the citizens in the neighborhoods and says, you know, the only people that really benefited was this group or that group, but we allow it to happen because we are the city council. We see things before anybody else does.
Yeah.
And so we have to do smart business, and you communicate that with your community.
Yeah.
And you get their input.
Yeah.
And you're going to get a vast, you know, we're going to hear, we want that. But at least you're communicating with them. I was raised, if there's no understanding, there will not be any getting along.
Yeah. Yeah.
So in all things, you get an understanding on what is going to work. Communicate that with the community, and I think at least they know what to expect.
Yeah.
So let's shift gears to the east side. I remember the east side back when I was growing up. They used to have their own festival down on St. John in Belmont.
Yes.
Haven't had it for years.
Yeah.
But we also understand the demographics have changed for as the culture.
Yes.
But you have to be more all-inclusive. At that time, it was basically a lot of Italians that was, you know, grassrooted in there. That dynamic has changed.
Yeah.
I think the Northeast Chamber has done a phenomenal job of galvanizing the community and meeting people where they're at. Because at the end of the day, this is what it's all about, is meeting people where they're at. My business is in the Northeast District.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to work very hard with them in understanding what the needs are. And I'm all for festivals.
Yeah.
I'm all for bringing the community together because I haven't seen that.
Yeah.
Because now you have probably 5 or 6 different cultures
Yes.
occupying that space now.
Yeah.
And so I'm excited about the opportunity to work with them and being transparent and then keeping the people informed. Because then you have the translation piece that you have to deal with, because they'll come, but if they don't understand what you're saying, they might as well not be there.
Right, right, absolutely. So one of the things that that I understood to be the drawback of including, and I'm going to say the Jazz District, was that they were concerned about the crime rate in the Jazz District. And some of the things that people are asking, and including myself, if you're concerned about the crime rate in a district that is a entertainment district, the lighting is horrible, parking lighting is even worse, and then security, there's still no real security in that area, even though the population or the traffic has gone down tremendously. We still don't have the type of assistance from the city for that area. That is an area that can grow and can bring new life to the east side. Starting there, we have to start somewhere.
Right.
We don't expect the city to fix the whole problem, but when do we actually start making some headroads or inroads in that community?
Well, that's an interesting topic. As you well know, my family and I had a business in the district for 3 years before COVID came and hit. And, you know, the other thing that's important to know about the 18th and Vine District, it is historical. It's actually not an entertainment district. And a lot of people think that it is, but it's not. It is a historical piece in Kansas City's history. It's not like your Westports and your, you know, Power and Light. You know, it's not an entertainment district yet. They would like for it to be after we leave.
Okay, I can buy into that. Yes.
All right. And so
I see that.
Let's keep it real here.
Yes.
And so because we haven't demonstrated that we want that to happen on a couple of different levels.
Yes.
The other thing that's important to know is that the city owns 80% or not 90% of the property in the district. I think there's only 3 buildings that the city doesn't own. That's the Lincoln Building, Zodiac Motorcycle Clubs, and I think the Daiquiri Shop. Everything else, and the Call Paper, they own their own building. But everything else is owned by the city.
Wow.
in the district. And
Wow.
so that's interesting to know because, you know, when they own everything, you know, who pays the piper calls the tune.
Right.
And so, but I think we just need someone to come down with a good business approach to it. That was my objective when we was there. We had some issues that we just couldn't overcome
Yeah.
for various reasons. But, you know, I believe that with the right people at the table, me being one, if elected, we can then take what I believe is the only thing we have left as people of color and preserve that and make it what we want it to be. And
Yeah.
so I want to lead the charge in that endeavor, whether I'm a city council person or not. There again, I believe I have some tools and bring some people to the table. We already have some people doing some things down there already with some development. So I believe we can turn 18th Street into what we really want it to be. A lot of people say, well, we want it like Beale Street. I want it better than Beale Street.
Absolutely.
I want it better than Beale Street.
Yeah.
We have some history there. And I think it's just a matter of getting the right people at the table that has an invested interest in it and not just be a taker, but a provider.
So that, you know, that brings me to also the fact that we talk about being one KC. And that would be a beautiful thing if we really could become one KC, where we are visiting all the neighborhoods and we're promoting and working on the west side and on the east side and in the central part of Kansas City. Kansas City is a very beautiful city. One,
yes,
I'm so proud to be a Kansas Citian. And I love the fact that when we have our sporting events, I don't care who you are, that brings together the diversity unheard of. And we get along just fine at the stadium. However, when we're leaving the parking lot,
that's a different story.
It's a different story. And so how do we bring that camaraderie to the whole of the city and realize how important and how much more control over crime, healthcare, education, housing, how much more control we would have when we become citizen ones. Yeah.
Well, I think it starts at the top, Kim. We have to first galvanize our city council.
Yes.
Our city council has to, you know what I'm saying, we don't have to go home and sleep with each other. But we have to have, at some point, a collective energy that we show that we're united. Not saying that that's not happening, but I think we need to take another step closer to bringing people together. And I believe that's one of my stronger points of bringing people together for the common good. You know, there was a situation at one time when I was doing shows where we had the two radio stations and, you know, and I needed both of them because it was a community event. I said, listen, I don't care how it happens. You can be in this corner, you can be in this corner. But I need both of you guys here because this is a community event and you service the community just like I do. And so it's just breaking down those barriers and having them understand, help me understand, why is it that we can't do it? And then let's deal with that issue. But I believe, Kim, is going to start with, number one, galvanizing the city council to lead the march. Everybody's not going to agree, but let's, you know, fake it until we make it. Until we get there. But it's a serious issue. And I think that, you know, bringing somebody to lead that march, I think we can start turning the curve. Because you got seven new city council people. And that's going to be a challenge.
This is a good time. Well, but this is a good time to do that. Because then you have a group of freshmen who are hungry and willing to work together, because everybody's platform is, I want to, but everybody is saying, I want to bring us together. I want to work together. And so if we all have this, we're all marching on this same platform, then let's call it out from the beginning. We said we were going to work together. How do we work together?
And that's the challenge that we have to overcome, and then set aside our personal issues, because now you are a servant to the people. And in order for you to serve, you have to first understand that you have to be able to follow. And so you got to follow what the people are saying and not make it about you, because I've seen this position change people. along the way. They start off a certain way, and then at the end of the first term, they become kind of disconnected, and then so on and so forth.
Yeah.
And so you have to be careful not to get on that slippery slope, because people will push you there. But you have to be able to process and understand that it's not about you. I'm doing what's in the best interest of the community, and be transparent with them.
Right.
And so that's a challenge by itself. But I have a good feel for what I like to see 18th and Vine look like. The crossroads is just a couple of blocks away.
Right. Absolutely.
And there's no reason for us not to be able to connect the river market, the city market, Power and Light, Crossroads, 18th and Vine.
West
You ought to
Side.
be able to get on one vehicle
And go.
and go to
And
it.
that, it's amazing though, even with the crossroads, the connection from the river market, west side,
Mm-hmm.
you cross over crossroads, east side. I mean, it's just a
It's there.
whole, it's there.
It's there.
The connection is there. The loop is there. And that it would bring a whole plethora of diversity
right.
and togetherness.
Well, there's some tools once again, there's some tools that I've learned along the way, of making, if you want to revitalize that area and attract businesses, we can make it a tax-free zone.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah.
A tax-free zone where we're going to bring businesses in here. And
Yeah.
if you come and buy here, it's tax-free.
Yeah.
To rejuvenate, because right now, if you live on 18th and Paseo,
Yeah.
where do you go on a Sunday morning to buy a pair of socks?
Well, good question. Hey, probably Family Dollar. So, we are winding up. This
Right.
is the second half. And Chuck, this was really good because it gave me more clarity.
Mhm.
I hope it gave the audience more clarity. April the 4th.
April the 4th is right around the corner.
April the 4th. You got a
Right.
week from Tuesday.
Right.
And we want everyone that is interested in supporting Chuck and voting for Chuck to remember you have to write him in.
Right.
There are going to be a lot of candidates. I can't tell you who to vote for. I can tell you go vote. Go vote. All the candidates have had an opportunity. Whoever is elected for the primary, you're more than welcome to come back and come to the show and speak up. We want to wish you all the best
Appreciate
on April the 4th. I know that this is near and dear to your heart.
It is. It really is.
And
yeah, Kim, I appreciate the hard work that you do with the
Thank
Heartland
you.
Chamber and the community. What I like about it is that you're connecting that younger demographic and let them
That's
know
right.
that they have a value. I
Yeah.
know it's a challenge sometimes, but I appreciate the work that you do.
Thank you.
And yes, I am committed to, this is more of an assignment for me.
Yeah.
It's not the job, it's not the position. This is more of an assignment that it's time for me to give back to the city that has given to me
Yeah.
and my family. And so, yes, April the 4th, I do need Kansas City to go to the polls and take your pen or my pen and write Chuck Bird in for the 5th District City Council at large. And I will promise you, and I don't make many promises, I will do the very best I can to represent you as an entire city, not just the 5th District, not the 3rd or the 4th, but the entire city. I believe we have some tools that we can move the needle in the right direction. And so on April the 4th, write Chuck Bird in. You heard it here first, Kansas City. Write Chuck Bird in. See you on April 4th. Do not hesitate to go to the polls. Please, please, please go vote. And right now, you can early vote without an excuse. So find the polling places, go and vote. Again, we thank you for tuning in to Speak Up. We want to thank always Televida for the services they provide and for being a strong advocate of the community. Thank you again, and we will see you next time on Speak Up.